Hi, everyone. Welcome back to TnT Talks. This is Christina, your host. We're bringing you 20-minute conversations to ignite motivation and life and business as we deal with this COVID-19 crisis. Today, we have an amazing guest, Brad Nelson from Balanced Sense, Roots of Personal Finance. And this has been, he's been a mentor of mine for the past 4.5, 5 years. And he's interviewed me multiple times, and I was so honored that he agreed to come on and let me interview him today. So welcome, Brad. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here. And as we were just talking before you hit record, it's weird being on this side and being interviewed because usually I'm the one interviewing other people. So this will be a little fun change here today.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how the time lined up that you actually just released my interview yesterday, and then
Yeah,
we're doing yours today. So,
right.
well, why don't you start out by telling everyone a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I run a personal finance coaching business. And what we do is we help people reduce financial stress and kick debt. We teach them how to save money and really learn the basics of money and personal finance. And I never really planned on having a business like this and helping people with this, but many years ago, I found myself in the very same situation that many people find themselves in today, living paycheck to paycheck, having very little money in a savings account. And it kind of seemed no matter how much money I would make, the more debt I would have. It was just this constant rat race and always on this kind of hamster wheel, so to speak. And I just couldn't get off of it. And during kind of the last, let's say, I know we're kind of going through a global crisis now with this virus stuff going on, but during our last national crisis, when the recession hit, that's when me and my family kind of hit rock bottom. I had went through divorce in my first marriage. A big reason for that was money and personal finance. There was other reasons behind that as well, but I lost my home to foreclosure. Luckily, we were able to short sell it, and I was there left without a house and no money and still a pile of debt with credit cards and car payments and other things. And it was that moment during that national crisis where I said, I'll never put my family in a situation like this ever again. And that to me was the motivating factor in getting out of debt and really kind of, quote unquote, growing up and being an adult. I was in my early 30s, and I just finally said, I had a young son named Noah, and he was about 2 to 3 years old at the time. And I just said, I need to be a better example to him. I need to show him how this money stuff works, because currently what I'm doing isn't working. So I set out on what I called was a personal finance crusade. And I just did a lot of self-education. I listened to podcasts, read books, did seminars, did classes, did courses. I mean, I don't care who it was that was teaching it. I just wanted to hear what they had to say, because I knew I had to learn a different way, because what I was doing and what popular society was doing just wasn't working. And over time, I began to start following a lot of these processes and principles that these people were teaching. Not all of them, but starting to fit things into my life that really made sense on the dreams and the things that I wanted to do. And after about 4 to 5 years of hard work, I paid off all of my debt, becoming completely debt free. I met my current wife, Sarah, and she too had a very similar story, living paycheck to paycheck. She actually even had a worse situation than I had, and she was behind in a lot of bills, had her car repoed twice, almost a third time. And she too, before we had gotten married, we both kind of looked at each other and said, we just don't want this life anymore. And she ended up getting on a very similar plan that I was on, and she ended up paying off $33,000 in just 11 months, becoming completely debt free. And we've been debt free now for over 6 years. And then, something kind of weird happened, and people started asking us for help. And we didn't really expect that, because we didn't get out of debt. We didn't change our finances for really anybody else. We just did it for us, because we just didn't want to deal with financial stress. We wanted to open our own businesses. We eventually wanted to have the opportunity to work together and just have something that we could really be proud of. And then people started saying, hey, we're struggling with a lot of the same stuff that you guys have been talking about. Hey, very similar to what you talk about, Christina, and you're talking all about this stuff too. It was very similar to that. And people just started saying, hey, I'm having trouble communicating with my spouse. We're having credit card issues. We're behind on bills. We don't really know how to budget. And so I just kind of started helping people on the side, and I was still working my job. I wasn't even charging people money for it. And I was just teaching them the same stuff that we were using, and they started to win. And I really started to see at that time how it was changing our lives, and also how it was changing other people's lives. And Sarah and I just got to talking more and more about it. And we said, you know what, we really like doing this. And especially I liked really doing it to help people. Why don't we just try it as a business and see if it works? And here we are 5 years later. We've helped thousands of people save and pay off tens of millions of dollars now. And I do it completely full time. And we have pretty close to 400 Roots members now. And it's just been an absolute ride of a lifetime. It's been so much fun and helping people and seeing people change their financial lives. And not only that, but be able to reach a lot of the dreams and things that they thought once were impossible because of the financial stress that they were dealing with. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have watched your journey since the beginning, and it's been remarkable. And I love that I've been able to be a part of that. And since I am a member and have been in the program for so many years, I know that a lot of it has already been online and virtual. So what are the challenges that you've seen coming across your table with what you have going on? Is it more with members, or are you seeing a difference in your business as well?
Yeah, I mean, thankful and we're very grateful, but the model that we were already using pretty much kind of fit within with a lot of what other people had to kind of turn to during this time, in the sense that everything that we were doing was virtual. Our coaching calls are all done online, either through a phone call or through Zoom. All of our content, all of our live meetups, all of our communication is either done through Zoom or through our online membership Roots or in our community Facebook group. So a lot of what we were already doing, the processes that we had in place, nothing had to change. In fact, we actually decided to back off a little bit on the communication when all of this started happening because people were overloaded with information.
Mhm.
So that would be the only significant change that we made, is that we just decided to, let's not send more communication to our members. Let's just ease off a little bit because they're already stressed with everything. I know our family was feeling it, just all of the emails. And then you get the company emails of how we're dealing with the crisis. And it's like, whoa, I mean, it's just overload, information overload. So that would be the only process that we changed. But from a member standpoint, we certainly saw an increase in questions, an increase in concern. But the beautiful thing that we saw was that we got so many people that messaged us and said, hey, I'm ready. Like, I've spent months
Yeah.
and years working on this. I've got my emergency fund built. I've already paid off a ton of debt. We're just going to tighten the reins up a little bit for the next several months until we get back to normal. And the overall majority of our members have been able to weather the storm just fine because they had control over their finances. But if you look at statistics before this crisis even started back in November, Go Banking Rates actually put out a survey that said that roughly almost 69 to 70% of people didn't have at least $1,000 in a bank account to cover an emergency expense. That's almost 7 out of 10 people. And also, there is Gallup polls. There's plenty of information out there that suggests a lot of people went into this situation without a working household budget. Roughly about 7 out of 10 people right now, at least before this crisis hit, didn't have a budget. Well, that's all different for our Roots members because that's what we're teaching them to do. We're teaching them to prepare for the unexpected because nobody knew something like this was going to show up on their door. And we teach them how to budget. We teach them how to have a plan. We teach them how to adjust when emergencies come up. So a lot of them already had all of the tools in their toolbox. It was just time to take them out and put them to work. And then we were just there to support, cheer them on. And it's been awesome to see that. But overall and above, our members are doing absolutely a fantastic job with managing their finances through this crisis. There's no question.
Good. Yeah. I know it's been a blessing to know, it's not about if, it's when. When are you
Yeah.
going to be in a situation? And this is definitely a global situation. I'm really curious though. So aside from business, you're the first fellow that I've had on the show, and you have a son
Yeah.
and a daughter, but your son is school age. I'd like to talk a little bit about personal life. Are you okay with that?
Yeah,
And
no
how you're
problem.
handling with
Sure. Yeah.
kids are home, you work from home. Sarah is now working more from home because she can't go out to be with her groups. And tell us just a little bit about that.
Haven't you noticed my gray hair is getting grayer by the day?
I did see your post about your little I don't know what he's called.
Yeah, cartoon. He's cartoon Brad, cartoon every dead
Cartoon
guy.
Brad.
Yeah.
Gonna give him some
Yeah.
highlights.
I mean, yeah, full transparency, it's tough right now. That's another thing for us. Like, this wasn't a huge adjustment for us because Sarah and I already worked from home. We run our businesses from our home. So having to stay and shelter in place for us wasn't a huge big deal. Now, yeah, it adds a little bit more stress because we like to get out and actually get out of the house so you don't get cabin fever. So being that we were able to do that as much, that's been a little bit more difficult. But yeah, having the extra added pressure of being now a homeschooling parent and having to work with Noah on his schoolwork has been a tremendous amount of pressure. Now, at the same time, though, we've decided as a family to say, you know what, this is temporary. Right now, I don't plan on trying to replace school out because our school district, at least at right now, doesn't have a current kind of organized online curriculum. They've provided us with resources that we can use and utilize, but by no means are they required to turn in homework or anything like that. And I've heard other parents that are dealing with that. And I'm kind of glad in a way that we aren't, because running two businesses at home plus having to teach him full time, I don't know where we would be. I really don't. So for us, that's been a big adjustment. So I think over the first couple of weeks that this happened, it was more or less, let's just kind of get a routine in place. And now that we have that in place, it's not nearly as bad. I think the hard part that I'm having is not necessarily school related, it's more socially related with him. I can
Mm-hmm.
tell there's days where he gets a little bit more frustrated than other days where I know that he misses his friends and just wants to play and hang out and do some of those things. And as a parent who's also trying to run their own business, it's hard to kind of say, well, let me sit down and play with you for 2 hours while I've also got all this other work going. So it's been a juggling act. There's no question. So we try to get out like today, we try to get out, take a walk for a good hour. We try to get out at, around lunchtime to throw the football around just to give him that break. And so far, it's worked pretty well. But at the same time, you got to be intentional with it. And as a lot of the parents know out there right now, it does get challenging. There's no question about it. So we're feeling the pain just like everybody else is.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
It's nice for people to be able to hear it from both sides as a father and mothers. I've had a lot of moms on here, but it's good to hear it. Not that you're struggling. It's not good to hear that you're struggling. It's good to hear that you're coping. Let me be clear on that. So, what are some results that you are seeing with the changes you've made in the membership and kind of stepping back? You said a lot of people are asking questions and things like that. And I know as a member, I see a lot of other members reaching out in support of one another.
Yeah. We saw, I mean, here's my hope in what's happened is that knowing the statistics on money and personal finance going into this situation, I'm hoping that this situation turns some lights on for some people. And whether they join our program or join another program or read a personal finance book or whatever it might be, my hope is that people will take their personal finances more seriously so that when the next crisis happens, and let's hope it's not a global crisis or a national crisis, it could be a personal crisis, it could be a medical situation, it could be you lose your job, it could be a lot of different things. But my hope is that going through this, we start to learn that, you know what, maybe it's not the next purchase that we need to be so concerned about, but maybe it's more, I need to put more money in my savings account, or I really need to learn how to budget properly, or I need to pay down some more debt as opposed to adding more debt to my life. And this past open registration that we just did, and we were kind of on the fence on whether or not we should do it. Should we, because our registration and our program Roots is a closed membership. That's what we call it. So we kind of treat it as kind of like a college curriculum. We open it up 4 times a year. We let new members in, and then we walk those and we close the doors. And then we basically give all of our focus and attention to those members to help them with their personal finances for 3 to 4 months. And then we'll open it again and let new members in. And this past launch, we decided to say, you know what, I think people do need this. We weren't really quite sure what to expect as far as how many people would sign up. And we actually had one of our best open enrollment periods ever. And I think a big part of that is because people are seeing how important it is to have a plan, and that this has taught them that, we need to probably handle some things a little bit differently moving forward. So that way, when the next thing hits, we do have a plan. And For those of us who, Christina, and you probably have talked about this too, maybe even on the show or even just on your regular social media platforms, but I know the people that in Roots, myself, our family, the people that have actually reached financial freedom that do actually live a life without payments or pretty close to it. A lot of us from a financial standpoint aren't really feeling a lot of financial stress right now because we did have a plan. And again, we don't say that to brag. We don't say that to put people's, shove their head in mud, and like put mud on their face, but we say it as, hey, there's this whole saying that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And I got to tell you, from a financial standpoint, having less debt, having more money in a savings account, having a good plan during a situation like this, the grass is greener on the other side. It does take a lot of the financial stress away. So I think for us, the biggest thing that we've seen in our organization is more of an awareness of good financial health. And I hope that continues. I hope that after this starts to go away over time, or let's say the risks start to go away, that the feelings of needing to change our finances doesn't go with it, because I'm hoping that people will use this as an opportunity to change their life. And I think it could be a good one.
It definitely put a lot of people in perspective of how unprepared they were, or maybe how wasteful they've been, and a lot of those things. And like you said, we definitely don't tell people where we are to make them feel bad. I like to share my story to inspire others
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
show them, like, it's possible. I'm just a normal person who lives on a farm. That, I don't make hundreds of $1,000s a year, but it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're the type of people that you'd never be able to pick us out of a crowd, that we do what we do and live the life that we live because we are normal. We drive older cars, we live in a smaller house. We just look at things differently, and we don't chase after stuff. And if we don't have cash, we don't buy it. I mean, those are all the things that we kind of work through, and it's just saved our family a tremendous amount of stress. And over the years, there's been people that have, I wouldn't say ridiculed, but maybe talked negatively that living debt free isn't possible or it's not reasonable. And not just during COVID-19, but we had a situation when our daughter was born. There were complications there. We've had so many emergencies over the last 6 years show up, just normal life emergencies. And this life without payments life, no debt, paying cash for things, has served our family so well. And there's just nothing that could ever convince me that another way is better, because we've lived it. We've lived the emergencies. We've lived through this global crisis, handling the money the way we've handled it, and we're doing great. And we feel bad. We feel bad for those people who weren't prepared, and that's what obviously our business is trying to help people learn how to do. Whether you join Roots or you follow our podcast or you're on our Facebook page, whatever it might be, we're constantly sending out information there to try to get people to start working on some of this basic stuff to help them improve their lives.
You mentioned your podcast, Debt Free Dad,
Yeah.
and I would definitely love, because I know that my followers are going to want to get more information from you and look into the program when it opens back up. And where can they find you and get more information?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got tons of like free resources, blog posts, podcasts, free courses. I mean, lots of different things on our website. If you go to debtfreedad.com, you can just jump on that website and you'll see all sorts of different information. We've got tools and courses. We even have a brand new debt freedom planner that we came out with. I mean, just all sorts of different tools and things that are going to help you take control of your finances. And then on top of that, if you are interested in joining our membership when registration opens up for our summer session coming up in July, we have a wait list. So basically people can sign up for that wait list. You can find our podcast on Apple Podcasts, pretty much every major podcast platform that's out there, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. I mean, all of those that are out there, just search Debt Free Dad and you'll have access. We've got about 22 episodes out right now, and we're doing those weekly, and they release every Tuesday. If you're more of a YouTube person, we've got a YouTube channel where we just record the podcast, very similar to kind of how we're recording this right now. And you can watch our YouTube podcast there as well. Either way, but there's so many different ways that people can connect with us. But first, going to that website, that'll be the easiest way to kind of look for what avenue works best for you.
Yeah, take advantage of all those free resources, especially right now if people are feeling that their financial situation is difficult because of job loss, or, just hunkering down and trying not to spend money. There's so much free stuff. I started with all of it, and it's very helpful. And you want to make sure to get the right information, and that's what Brad provides. So, Brad, you also mentioned financial books and things like, do you have a book suggestion that people can start with if they can rent it free from the library?
Here's what I would suggest. I have there's tons of financial books out there. And we could go through a few of those here, but the number one book that I would suggest for people to read is, and it's not completely financially related, is a book called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy.
Yes.
It is by far the absolute best book I have ever read. And I always say it to my wife all the time, if there's one book I need to study for the rest of my life, it's that one. Because the basic, simple principles that are shared in that book are life-changing, and you can apply them to every area of your life, whether it be your relationships, your parenting skills, a business you want to open up, the way you manage your money, anything and everything. And the other thing I love about it is that it's roughly about 180 pages. It's an easy read, but the information in that book is life-changing. It really, really is. And if you just take a couple of those concepts and apply them, you will essentially apply the compound effect to your finances and to your life. And that's kind of what a lot of people are dealing with right now. They have the reverse compound effect, is what I like to call it, where there's been too many bad choices made, and those bad choices compounding time and time again have turned into a big financial mess and a lot of financial stress. So what we need to do is reverse engineer that and start making better choices. And every day you make those better choices, it returns and basically swings the pendulum in the other direction of creating a more positive compound effect. And you start getting some really, really great results. Many years ago when we became debt-free, things were a lot harder than they are today. But things come a lot easier now because we have momentum going in our direction, just from day in, day out, consistently being disciplined with our finances, with our goals, with our dreams, with the things that we want to do. But it takes time to get there. But the longer you do it, the more you do it, the easier it does get over time. So that's why I love that book. It's absolutely fantastic. As far as other personal finance books, obviously, I started big time with Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover is a great book. I'd highly recommend checking that out. There's David Bach, Automatic Millionaire. That's a great book. I mean, there's so many different ones. My suggestion to you would be read a lot of them. There are so many people that get hung up on one person. And I tell my Roots members this too. It's like, look, don't just follow me. All right. Pick up another personal finance book, pick up other people, because how I say it or how I explain it may not be exactly the same way somebody else explains it. And you might get it better from somebody else, or you might say that option works better for me. And that's how you kind of get a really good sound financial plan, is by taking bits and pieces of everything, kind of putting into place to help you reach your dreams. So those would be a couple of them. As far as the podcasts that I've listened to, obviously Darren Hardy has a podcast. It is the Compound, or it is his Darren Dailies that he does, which are awesome. Those are about anywhere between 3 minutes to 7 minutes long. So if you're like me, who likes to just get their quick motivation for 3 to 7 minutes in the morning and you're done, those are awesome. So those would be just a couple of the resources that I recommend at this point.
I love it. Those are all of my top people. I have all of those books on my shelf. So listen to what Brad's saying. Pick these books up, read them. And I actually really enjoy, I try to read The Compound Effect every year.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that I'm staying on top of it. And because life happens, things distract you, and maybe you forget to implement those things. But
they call it the drift, right? You don't intend for the drift to happen, but just one day of not doing it turns into 2, turns into 3, and before you know, it's months, and it's like, how did I get here, right?
Yeah, we're already like 50 days into like social distancing and stay-at-home orders, so that's crazy.
Yeah.
So aside from books, podcasts, and just really studying things, do you have any other recommendations that you think people could put into effect right now?
A big one, just do something. And this is the biggest, I think, and when I say failure, I'm not trying to be negative when I say that, but I think this is the biggest failure that most people have. There are plenty of people who would like to learn, which I think is great. Having the attitude of being a learner, I think, is awesome. But I think more people have the attitude of doing something with it. So rather than say, there's a lot of people who will commit to say, I want to read 100 books this year. Okay, well, how about you read 2 books and just do a lot of the stuff out of the books, right? Take action. And I think that's where you're going to see most of the results. You see most of the results by taking action and doing something. We explain this in Roots all the time. It's like, there's a lot of people who want to learn the information that we're teaching them, but then when we kind of follow up back up with them, there are a few of them that aren't really doing anything with it. Well, then the learning really isn't paying off. It's just because you know it doesn't mean you're going to get the results. You got to actually put it into practice. So my suggestion, outside of listening to these great resources, which is awesome to do, but just start picking little things out of those and do them. For instance, one of the first things that we suggest to people getting their finances under control is to build an emergency fund. So maybe you take that away from this show today. If you don't have one, that should be the first thing that you consider building is let's build an emergency fund. And you just work like crazy until you get that thing built. So if you commit to doing and also learning at the same time, I think you're going to find that you're going to get a lot more results and success.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, that's great. I second everything that he says.
I think we all do. I think we all do. It's easy to get on a call like this and just say it perfectly, but that's not how life works. It's a grind for me, just like it is for everybody else. And, that's another thing. I think finding if you're married, have a good partner, I think that can be a great accountability buddy. My wife is way better at that whole thing I just said than I am. She sits down every day. She's got her notebook. She's taking notes. And I just look at her and I'm like, I wish I could be more like you. So
just do it.
It is. It's a grind. It's easy to say. It's not easy to do. But, again, if you get most of the days you're doing it, you're doing all right, in my opinion.
Thank you so much, Brad.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, I want to say I appreciate you so much and all of the advice that you've provided and being here so that I can share you with the world. And everyone, just be sure to subscribe so you can catch the next interviews. Go follow Brad, get on that waiting list so that you can be notified when we open back up. You'll see me in the group. You'll see me sending shout outs and posting. I'm still very active in there, even though I've come as far as I have. So until next time, everyone, we'll see you later.